Hey there, Mama, and welcome back to the Mom's Overcoming Overwhelm podcast, episode number 236. I'm Emily McDermott, and I'm here beside you on this journey as we work together to declutter your home, head, and heart. We have spoken in several episodes about the mental load, which is the invisible side of household management and tasks that we find ourselves definitely responsible for as overwhelmed moms. And that's why I'm really excited to bring Chantel Mila on the show. She has a new book called The Fair Share, which is all about the mental load. Now, Chantel is also known as Mama Mila, and she has become a household name for her creative and practical approach to home and lifestyle. And she is from Australia. She was so kind as to speak to me very, very early in Australia. And since 2020, she's captivated over 4 million Instagram and other social media followers with her recipes, home hacks, and viral #Mama Mila Tips series. And she wrote a book previously called The Dream Clean. She is a frequent guest on the Australian talk shows, The Morning Show, The Today Show, and Sunrise. And this was just such a great conversation. The book is filled with templates to help you have conversations with your spouse, also your kids, about how we can make some of these invisible tasks visible, and then be able to rotate chores, to be able to motivate the people that we live with, to follow through, why it's important that we have the planning and doing role for tasks be the same person, and so much more. So without further ado, grab that notebook and pen, and let's dive into today's conversation with Chantel Mila. Hey Mama, are you tired of your cluttered home and mile-long to-do lists but are too overwhelmed to know where to start? Do you lack the time and motivation and don't think you'll ever conquer the clutter? You're in the right place. I'm Emily, wife, boy mom, and declutter coach who has overcome the overwhelm in my own life through decluttering and simplifying. I believe every mom deserves the peace that comes from a clutter-free home. Ready to get your life back? Let's declutter your home, head, and heart together. Well, hi, Chantel. Thank you so much for coming on the Moms Overcoming Overwhelm podcast. Or should I say good day? Because you are talking to us at like 5 in the morning at some ungodly hour. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me on. As soon as I saw your podcast, I was like, it's just such a great fit for exactly what we're talking about in the Fair Share.
Yes, and I've explored a little bit of mental load topics just because how could we not? And I think that it's great that it's becoming more well known now, whereas before it was just, as you say in the book, everything was just kind of like invisible, like the invisible load aspect. But now we're kind of making that invisible visible and being able to
Correct.
talk about it with our partners, with our kids, and everything. And I was just curious, you're kind of known for your cleaning hacks and more of like the clean aspect because your last book was The Dream Clean. And now it's this shift to kind of more talking about the mental load. And what inspired you to kind of make that shift when you knew you maybe wanted to write another book?
Yeah, so the Dream Clean came out 2 years ago, and that really was like a collection of all of my top tips and tricks. And I do a lot of eco-friendly cleaning around the home, so eco-friendly DIYs to kind of make your home a beautiful space, but at an affordable price point and with lower, tox and lower harsh chemicals. And so in that book, I did talk, like I touched on the issue of the mental load on like a page or two, because so many households face it, and it's really important to have that terminology as well, because I think having the terminology is also the first step towards breaking those patterns and having those conversations. And so when it came to writing a second book, I was like, do I want to do something really similar to the Dream Clean, or do I want to take this idea of the mental load? And more and more now, we are just so overwhelmed, and that never-ending kind of to-do list in our head just piles up and piles up. And so so the Fair Share does have all of those tips and tricks as well, and those eco-friendly DIYs, but it's more so fleshing out this idea of the mental load, but really bringing it to the surface and giving it the language it needs so that we can have these conversations in our homes.
And one of the things I love about how your book is structured is that you have examples from three couples that are in different stages and seasons as far as like age and kids and everything, kind of showing examples through this 4-week program that you're kind of bringing people through. Sort of how it differs for different families and different family structures. And one of the things that you bring up is the concept of like the household manager and how we're trying to pretty much fire ourselves from the job.
Yes, yes, we need to retire that job. We do not need it anymore. So the reason I brought in the case studies is because household structures can look so many different ways, you know. So it could look like mine, where, you know, I've got a similar to you, a eight and, you know, seven and I've got a 7 and 9 year old and my husband, and we're kind of working together as a team of four. You might have households like Charlie and Noah, who are friends of mine, but their names have all been changed, who are a newlywed couple, or there might be households where you might have teenage children who are also, you know, very capable of sharing that mental load as well. And so that's my friends Jack and Mary in the book as well. So it goes through different life stages as well, so that it's relatable to a whole group of people.
Yeah.
And yeah, retiring that household manager role, because and we didn't sign up for it. We did not sign up for that role, but we wear it, and it's yeah, it's high time it's just not needed anymore. And the aim with the book as well is that in 20 years' time, we don't want to be having this conversation. This should just be the way that things work, and that shared responsibility and shared ownership of housework should just be the norm.
Yeah. And one of the things you mentioned in the book, and I read Fair Play by Eve Rodsky, so that's where I
Mhm.
kind of became familiar with the kind of invisible aspect of tasks and making that visible. But you talk about the life cycle of the task and why it's important to understand that there is this life cycle. It's not just what you see, kind of that tip of the iceberg that you see, just the thing that was done, but there's a lot that goes underneath that and behind it. So can you tell us a little bit about what that life cycle of the task is? And because that's going to really frame the conversation when it comes to how do we decide how to share the load. We have to understand what the load is first before we can share it, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I think this is the thing, is that a lot of the time when we talk about sharing the mental load, we jump straight to the solution and we're like, oh, you know, we need to split household tasks so that you're doing the exact same amount as I'm doing. But I always use the example of taking out the bins or taking out the trash. And the whole life cycle of that task. So when you talk about, okay, I'm going to take out the trash, you're taking it from your kitchen bin, you're taking it out to the curb, putting it in the council bin and waiting for collection. My task is done completely. Like, you know, we're all done. But there are so many like that is not the full life cycle of the task. That is just that, as you say, tip of the iceberg. After that, there is replace the bin liner? Have we bought more bin liners and put them on the shopping list? Have we cleared that little stinky area that is underneath the, you know, kitchen cupboard door? There are so many things that are hidden within that task, and that applies to so many different tasks. And so when the full life cycle of the task isn't done, that adds to the mental load, because then someone in the household can say, "Oh no, but I took the bins out. I've done my share." But it's like, well, actually, there were all these invisible tasks that sat, the mental load tasks that sat behind that physical task. And when those aren't done, that is still adding to the load of the household manager in your home. Um, and every task has this, you know, it might even be doing the dishes. It's like, I did the dishes, I'm done. But it's, you know, did you clear the little drain in the inside of the sink? After you clear that drain, did you wash down the sink as well? If you did wash down the sink, are we low on dishwashing liquid? Have you added that to the shopping list? Are we low on supplies like gloves or cleaning products, or the wipes, and have you added that to the shopping list? So making sure that full life cycle is done. Is there any leaks in the sink? Do we need to call a plumber? Like all of those things, when that full life cycle isn't done, it can still add to the mental load.
Yeah, and one of the examples that came to mind that I had recently in my own life was birthday parties for the kids, meaning
Hmm.
they're attending someone else's birthday party. So,
Hmm.
like, my husband may drive my child to the party and pick them up. However, there was everything in the background where I text the mom and say, hey, what's on so and so's wish list? Getting the
Right.
thing, getting the card, making sure it ends up going to the kid, because we've had it happen where either one of my sons goes to the party and they forget to give the gift. And then like months later we find it in a backpack. But that's one of those things where it's like looking at that planning, the execution, and then the follow up, because a lot of that, like you said, the maintenance aspect happens on that follow up or the did we
Correct.
add it to the shopping list? How do we know that it's being maintained? Because when it comes to our home, especially, we have to maintain it. That's like
Yeah.
part of the process of being, even if you're renting, but homeowners, is that you have
Mhm.
to be able to maintain. And I'm curious as we shift kind of into some of those templates that are amazing, guys. I mean, she has this QR code there. It's like so easy to get. But one of them is the master list. And it takes up numerous pages in this book because it is a master list. And what I really appreciate about how you structured it is that it has the visible and the invisible, but we're making it in one place so then we can actually talk to our family members about that. So, can you talk a little bit about that and then also how we're differentiating between the planner and the doer, and maybe it makes sense for it to be the same person or else things fall through the cracks. At least I've had that experience in my own life for sure with my husband.
Absolutely. And that birthday party example, it's such a great example because there are so many hidden, even the thank yous afterwards, or if you're bringing something along, making sure you know who in the class has which allergies. And, there are so many things that we do in the background that are we do it almost on autopilot, even in those classroom WhatsApp groups or group chats which parent is in those group chats as well, which parent kind of has the pulse on the school, but both of them, both of us should be on them, but often that does fall on one person, and then that person becomes the reminder of, oh, don't forget it's this day, don't forget to bring that $1 donation or whatever it is. So, what the master list is it's kind of a snapshot of your entire household. So, it goes through kind of section by section, like it might be money management, it might be cleaning, it might be birthdays, it might be automotive, and it's kind of a comprehensive breakdown of everything it takes to run the household. And that sounds really overwhelming, but with the template, I promise you, it is not as overwhelming as it sounds. So yes, it covers kind of the visible tasks like the cooking and cleaning, but also the invisible tasks like the, school emails, birthdays, tracking appointments, those kind of things. And it breaks it down into those roles of planner and doer. So going back to the bins example, or even your birthday example, the doer is the one who actually does the physical task. So who takes the bins out to the curb, who cleans the sink, who empties the gutters, or who takes the child to the birthday party, and that's the doer's role. But then, acknowledging the life cycle of the task behind that, there is the planner who does all of the invisible tasks behind there. And that is what we kind of want to amalgamate. So the planner is that household management role, and we want to kind of acknowledge that behind every task, there is someone doing that invisible work. We want to acknowledge that visible work, bring it to the surface, and then once we have that kind of acknowledgement, we can merge those two roles together. And by doing that, if somebody is constantly, whenever a task is done, if they're doing both the invisible and the visible work, the goal is that one day we can retire that household manager.
Yeah. And I was reminded as to why it is helpful to kind of have these conversations, especially with our kids too. And you do get into that. We'll chat about it. But especially with our partners and spouses, because resentment can grow so easily when there's a disconnect with who's doing a task. So, another recent example, at the time of recording, we just had Easter. And in the United States, at least, we have the Easter baskets filled with the candy and whatever, and all the treats and so forth. And then they're hidden, and then the kids find it, right? And I kind of messed with my husband a little bit on Saturday night, kind of late. And I go, oh, you got the kids' baskets, right?
Oh, I
He's
love this.
and he's like, no, I thought you got him. And I'm like, I did, but it's sort of like I
Yep.
wanted to
Yep.
show him, and it wasn't passive aggressive because we have a good relationship when we've talked about this
Yes.
stuff,
Yes.
but it's more like, yeah, I did. Like I went to the store before everything was gone and I got Roblox gift cards because my kids really like
Yes.
Roblox. And like did all of that forethought and planning. And then they get it in the morning, and then he's kind of just going, my husband just kind of going on with his day. But then I want to be acknowledged for the part that, like, I did too, you know? So he does a lot of things that are also invisible to me that I want to start
That's
learning more
right.
about when it comes to household management. We're getting ready to move. So a lot of these things are kind of coming to the surface. And that's why I think that master list is so important because both partners are saying, oh, yeah, I've actually been doing this for a long time. And the other might say, oh, really? You did? I
Oh,
guess
I
you
had
did.
no
I
idea.
had
Yeah,
no
exactly.
idea. So it just kind of fosters that communication. And I'm sure you have in the examples of your friends and then also with your husband, did you feel like it kind of lightened some of that like stress and potential resentment or that passive aggressiveness because you were able to really get on the same page?
That's exactly right. And also the saying that like a lot of them, as soon as they heard about what their partner does, they're kind of like, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you tell me sooner? And I think it's really interesting what you said about like the mental load works both ways. So there was a friend of mine, Katie, and she also has an online presence, and she shared a really interesting story the other day about how she was going to well, petrol at the moment, petrol prices are very, very, very high. And so she was going to go, they were going to drive somewhere. And she said to her husband, like, why don't we take my car? It's so fuel efficient. Like, we really need to. I never fill petrol. My car's always full of fuel. It's so fuel efficient. And her husband turned around to her and he said, you do know that your car isn't actually that fuel efficient. I just fill it up with petrol every week. And she was like, I had no idea. So it's one of those things where, this isn't something to build resentment. It's just something to have that really open and clear communication, because we're both doing so much that, our partners might not know about.
I love that example. It's like, wait, do I have a hybrid vehicle? No, you just have
Yeah, exactly.
a very responsible husband that's going
That's
to
it.
get
And
gas.
she really had no idea. I loved that
Oh
story. I
my
was like, oh my
gosh.
goodness.
Well, I want to move to how also we're getting the kids a little bit involved in this. And in
Yeah.
week two, we're kind of shifting to looking at strengths and preferences. And this really spoke to me not only for my husband and myself, but then also for kids, because the age-old question of every mom is like, how do I get my kids to do chores or like how do I get them, to want to do chores? And
Yeah.
knowing their strengths and preferences is really important in that conversation because otherwise it is really like pulling teeth and can be kind of painful. So, can you tell us sort of examples of how we could look at that master list and say, okay, I'd like to encourage maybe my kids to do this. How can I match that up with their strengths and preferences for that?
Exactly. So the changes that we make throughout the fair share, we want that to be really long-term change. We don't want this to be a band-aid fix and then it just falls back to old ways. And often when we just jump straight to the solution, that works for a little while. And then we just fall back to old ways because we're like, you know what, it was too hard, put it to the side, let's just go back. And that's what I really wanted to avoid. And by aligning tasks with strengths and preferences, I like that's a way for people to kind of enjoy what they're doing and it not become this like cumbersome like burden that's like, oh, I have to do the dishes again this way, So looking at the members of your household. So, for example, in our household, there's four of us. You might have kind of detail-oriented people. You might have very creative people. You might have people who love the outdoors and love getting outside and are really sporty, maybe. You might have people who love to cook. You might have teenagers who've just gotten their driver's license and are kind of itching to get the car out and go do those little things like grab milk when you need it from the shops or and that gives them that little bit of independence that they might be itching for. So looking at kind of where people are at in your household and what their strengths are, and then aligning tasks to those strengths. So, for example, my son Aston, he's 7 years old. He loves basketball. He's constantly outside. Always outside bouncing a ball or doing something. So, giving him tasks that are outdoors related. So it might be hanging clean washing on the line, and he'll happily do that because then he's outdoors. It might be getting him involved in gardening. He loves that because it means he's outdoors. He's just taken over my daughter in height. So he loves like showing that he's kind of big and strong. So bringing in the groceries from the car is something he really loves doing. And then finishing off that life cycle, if you're bringing them in, well, then help me put them away as well. So then he'll help put them away too. Whereas my daughter Mila, she's very creative. Like she loves creating and she's artsy. So the tasks that she really enjoys are things like helping me change bed linen because then there's that beautiful before and after. And she loves, oh, mum, why don't we use this linen and we can pair it up with these cushions or something like that? Why don't we switch out these and get these flowers for the room? And those are things that she really enjoys. And even instead of calling it tidy the living room, I call it style the living room. Can you help me style the living room? And she's like, yeah, let's style the living room together. So those are the kind of things that when you match a strength and preference that someone inherently has with the tasks. And then we'll talk a little bit about habit stacking as well, just to kind of make it so that it's not, again, we don't want this to be an exercise where at the end of the day, people feel like, oh, it's a burden. This is something that I have to take on because mum's making me. It's just something that kind of fits naturally into their life. That's kind of the aim and the goal of where we want to get to.
Yeah. And I love that about like knowing and understanding your kids' personalities and kind of what motivates them. And I have two boys, so definitely we're into basketball. So definitely, and you mentioned in the book about like gamifying and being able to say like, oh, okay, how can I make this a game and who can do it
Yeah,
faster? And, the language that we use is so important, like you said, like tidying versus styling, because part of our job as parents is that we are preparing our children with the life skills that they need in order for when they grow up and they're going to have to manage their own homes and do these things themselves. So it's like we want to make sure that they get practice doing it, but it's not drudgery, because if it
exactly.
is, then they'll like never want to do it. And
And then we just fall
yeah.
back, like that, we
Yeah.
just fall back into old ways as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I've tried different things as far as like our own version kind of chore charts and so forth. And I do think that, it's a process because our kids are changing and growing, and therefore their
Yeah,
motivations are going to change. And just recognizing it doesn't have to be the set it and forget it. Like you are going to have to reassess and figure out what's working, what's not. And I did want to ask you about like the rotation of chores, because that is another thing to make sure we're not burning out on a particular thing, or if something is perceived to be quote unquote harder than something
yes,
else, and then the one kid or the one partner is doing it all the time, then we want to make sure we're, first of all, not the only one that knows how to do something, but then second
yeah.
of all, that we're not getting sick of it. So can you talk a little bit about that rotation process?
Definitely. So, by rotating chores, it does help things feel a bit more collaborative. So, not every chore is going to be desirable. Like, the ones that I listed earlier are probably your cleaner, like nicer chores, like hanging out fresh laundry. That is a very nice chore to do. Like, it's not. Whereas things like, cleaning the bathroom, that is something that maybe people might put off a bit more. So, by rotating those chores and kind of turning chores into and using reward systems based on kind of a rotating chart. And there is a little template in the book for a little spin wheel. It's almost like a little wheel of fortune, but it's with chores as well. It just kind of helps, yeah, like you said, kind of reduce that resentment and share the load evenly. And yeah, allow people to build skills. And then as they do, they might realize that that is a strength of theirs. Maybe cleaning the bathroom is something that somebody actually does enjoy doing because they can put in a hair mask in their hair, listen to a really great podcast, and have that little bit of downtime while they do clean the bathroom. So by rotating chores, it does help yeah, make the whole process feel a bit more collaborative.
Yeah, we have something in my house called sugar math. And sugar math is that my kids want to make sure that they're getting equal amounts of treats. So they're trying to
Oh,
equate
yes.
like candy to cookies and whatever. They're always very concerned that things are very equal between them.
Yes.
And so when it comes to chores, I feel like that's important too, that not only do they have like the opportunity to do different things, but that they're seeing, okay, well, this week you're cleaning this bathroom, but next week your brother's going to clean the bathroom. And they know there's, that fairness that is so inherently important to children, or at least my kids.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Try to like sort of head off the complaining by saying like, okay, well, this is why we're doing it this way, and also get there depending on age. And you have age appropriate chores within the book if anyone needs some inspiration, but just that for their age what might motivate them, but also kind of what's appropriate for their age. And then it just, I don't know, I really appreciate because I have kind of memories of cleaning baseboards, and that kind of thing as a kid. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. And I
Yes.
would have liked to maybe have it be gamified or to be able to have a timer or like music or something to be able
Yes.
to
Yeah.
make it fun because adults, like I totally listen to podcasts while I clean the bathroom.
Exactly.
So just
Exactly. So
having kids
we do
know
it
that.
ourselves. We
Yeah.
gamify it too. So, doing it for the kids. And it is as simple as, putting a bit of music on, making it a bit of family time. It might even be putting on, a timer where, it might be the Mission Impossible soundtrack and that dun 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 dun. And so like they have to run around and do it before that song finishes, which is kind of 2 minutes of cleaning. But really, or tidying up or packing away their toys or making their bed or whatever it might be that kind of takes that amount of time. But making it fun for them.
Yeah. And I really appreciate just the understanding that I guess that we're a family working as a unit, we're working as a team. Like it's not that one person is sitting out and everyone else is doing something. Like we're working together at the same time. And that really kind of builds that family bond and family relationships too. So I really appreciate that. And I want to move into kind of more the digital side of things because often we have, oh gosh, with sports calendars and activities and school, and the school emails you and texts you and also
Yep.
sends a paper home. You're getting communicated with into just constantly during the day, and you want to make sure that you and your partner are on the same page, like what's going on. And
Yes.
I had already been doing a shared calendar with my husband, so I feel like I kind of had that under wraps. But the shared email address, I had never thought of that before. And I was like, that is completely genius. So I would love it if you could just kind of do a brief overview of like shared calendar, email, and then
Mhm.
maybe shopping list and sort of
Yeah.
how supports this whole system.
So our shared email address actually started off being the RSVPs for our wedding. So we started this like joint email address way back when we got married, 11 years ago when we got married, to get the RSVPs for our wedding all to one place that we both had access to. And then we didn't kind of use the shared calendar that much, shared email address that much after that until we started running a household and we had, the water bills come through, the electricity bills come through, the gas bills come through. And then once we had children, all of, like you said, the children's school emails came in, and there was just so much communication that came in that you had to stay on top of. And that's when we started using that shared email address again. So when there is an email that comes through, whether it be a doctor's appointment, a vet appointment, anything, it comes through to both of our phones, to a shared address. We're both fully across it at any given time. If there is like a bill that's due, it's not a, oh, where is it? I'll pay it. We both have access to it. And it's right there, like it pops up on both of our phones at the same time. And then off the back of that shared email address, we started our shared calendar. And this is, like you said, like a lot of households do use this, but it really is that shared accountability. And even if there is a shared calendar, often it's one person adding to the calendar, and it's the one person who's got the emails that come through that adds to the calendar. But the goal is that we want both people getting the emails, both people adding to the calendar. Or if you've got older ch kids as well, they might also be added to the share calendar, and they can put in things like their shifts at their part-time job, or if they're working late in studying late in the library, or if they've got a test coming up. And so we can kind of have that. Again, it's a snapshot of the household. So we're really, everyone is across everything. Everyone's getting reminders, everyone's getting those kind of pop-ups. And there are things like, if Mila has a birthday party this Saturday, Robbie has the ability, my husband has the ability to look at that and go, oh, okay, on Tuesday I'm going to the shops. I can buy the gift at that stage. So it really is that kind of shared ownership so that one person isn't looking after it all. So that's the shared email addresses and shared calendars. And then one thing I absolutely love, and it's a feature on iPhone, but I'm sure Android would have a feature for it as well, is shared shopping lists, shared grocery lists. So I think it's in the Reminders app on iPhone. There is this section for a shopping list, and the shopping list is really kind of interactive. As soon as you add something like eggs, it categorizes it per aisle in the store. And if you make that a shared shopping list with, like I said, with your partner, or if you've got teenage children, they can be added to the shopping list as well. Doing that full life cycle of a task becomes so much easier, because when they do see, oh, we've just taken the bins out, but there's no bin, or we're running low on bin liners, as I put the liner in, pull out your phone, add it to the shopping list, and it's done. And then immediately it's on everybody's list as well. If somebody's passing by the shops, like I said, if Robbie's passing by the shops on Tuesday and he says, oh, I can swing past, he can pull up the shopping list, see everything that needs to be picked up for the household, tick it all off. So then on Wednesday, if I have a look at, I go, oh, it's already done. Great. I don't need to do that. So it's just opening those lines of communication where we can, and utilizing technology to kind of make that flow a bit better.
Oh yeah. My husband and I have had shared shopping lists even before kids. Like we would go at that point to separate spots in the grocery store, and we kind of have a race to see like who could check off the list sooner.
Yes.
But we also do it for packing. So I have kind of like a basic, shared packing list for myself and then also for the kids. So if he is going with the kids and I'm not coming, then he can kind of see the types of things I packed. But one of the things that I've been trying to implement to kind of help me with the shared shopping list is I try to do like a fill up Friday, which is like the soap and like the different things to kind of like make sure everything is sort of how it's supposed to be. And then if there's any like cleaning or paper product type things that need to be replenished, then being sure that I put it on the list at that point. But yeah, I think that's something that my husband and I were kind of working on together, where I see that we're eating and something finishes, like is hot sauce or something. And then it's just being like, okay, are you putting that on the list or am I putting that on the list? And just
Exactly. Yeah.
having that communication is never going to be perfect. And
Oh, no.
obviously, we can. And I even remember an example of the book where you are kind of talking to your husband. You're like, okay, I put this on the list. Do you want anything? And no, I'm good. I already put things on the list. And so it's just a helpful way, like you said, to communicate, to have the flow of our days going better. And then there's not as much like confusion, resentment, or that you need something that day and then you don't have it. And which is annoying,
Exactly.
especially with kids. My kids are always like, what do you mean we don't have said food? And I'm like, well,
But the said food is something like Cheetos.
no,
Like
I
it's
know.
Prevent something that you necessarily need to have.
There's always like they change the snack they like every week, and they're like, "Well, why don't you have the new snack I like?" I'm like, "Because you liked the other one last week, you know?" So
Yeah.
it is just
Yeah.
kind of helping with that. But okay, so last question before we wrap up. So we're talking about like the household manager, how we want to retire the household manager. That is the goal. And how can we do that without stepping back into our old habits and feeling like, at least for me, I have to quote unquote fix it. Like, oh, this isn't working how I want it to. I've done this before. I'm just going to step in and take care of it and it's fine. And then we end up kind of going right back where we were before. So, how would
Yeah.
you recommend that we make sure we don't do that, I guess?
And I mean, do you know what? This is so difficult, especially for someone like me who's so type A. I always feel like I'm the fixer and like, oh, it would just take me 5 minutes if I'll just do it. I'll just do it, you know? But it really is, it's letting go of that control. And honestly, things aren't going to be 100% smooth. It's not going to be 100% perfect. An example is, we leave overseas in 2 days. And my husband had put in the shared calendar just yesterday, actually, some things he needed to pick up from the chemist. But instead of putting it in at 2:30 p.m., accidentally it went through at 2:30 a.m. So we all got this being on our phones at 2:30 in the morning for the things that he needed to pick up from the chemist. So not everything is going to be smooth, and that's okay. It's really about letting go of that ownership. An example I give in the book is, if it was your teenager's turn to do the dishes and they've left dinner and they haven't done the dishes just yet, it might take you 5 minutes and you might go, oh, you know what, they're just tired, I'll just do it for them. But it could be that they're just finishing up one little thing in their room and then they were coming out to do it. But if you've already done it by the time they do come out, it doesn't build that confidence in them. They feel like, oh, okay, well, mum will do it next time as well, or dad will do it next time as well. And so it's kind of resisting that urge to fix things straight away, resisting that urge to remind someone, even though it'll kind of take you 2 seconds. It's shifting that mindset and allowing people the opportunity to be able to take on that role and to be able to kind of step up.
Yeah, you and I think, have very similar personalities
Yeah.
because my youngest one, like the thing that he does probably the most, and he's not doing it on purpose, but he'll leave his dishes like, on his placemat or whatever. And I'm like, it could just take me 2 seconds and I could just bring him to the sink. He's already upstairs. And I've trained myself to be like, hey, Sean, you forgot your plate. And he goes, oh,
Yeah,
sorry. And he runs down and he does it. And it's fine.
exactly.
And it's just that split second decision where you're like, yeah, I could do it myself, but who is that helping? Like in the long run,
Correct.
like who is it helping? And that's been really kind of that pausing and kind of making a different choice for myself as a mom. That's been helpful for me because I'm trying to think long term again, life skills, launching these children into the world eventually, and want to be sure that they have those skills. And we can't have them, be able to develop those skills if we don't give them the opportunity. So that's something I have to
Exactly.
remind myself of constantly.
And it's consistency, right? So, like, when you're building any skill, and for some, children, this is brand new to them. Like, the idea of taking ownership of their own kind of household chores might be very new to them. So, that consistency is really important for them to be able to, and giving them that space to be able to learn how to build that skill.
Yeah. Well, I would love it if you could tell us where everyone can get the book. It's just so exciting. Here it is for the YouTubers here. It's so
Oh, thank
beautiful.
you.
It's like, I don't know. I do not have, I love my home. I do not have the type of home I think that photographs so well. So I'm like looking through and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so gorgeous. So, and again, it's not just gorgeous, it's practical and it has all these examples and the templates and just encouragement. And I just am very excited for people to get their hands on it. So where can they do
Oh,
that?
thank you. It's available now. It's on Amazon and it's also on in all major bookstores.
Wonderful. Well, I will link to everything in the show notes. And Chantel, thank you so much again for getting up
You.
early and joining us today. And congratulations again on the book.
Thank you so much. It was so lovely to chat to you.
Yeah. Hey, Mama, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, could you please share this episode with another mom who is feeling overwhelmed? Also, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a 5-star written review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Finally, if you would like more support, come on over to our free Facebook group, tinyurl.com/moms overcoming overwhelm. Can't wait to connect with you soon.